So good morning folks, Trodwin here, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do powders checks. That's the daily checks that we do before we take our bike out on the road, and probably on a regular basis like every week. So without further ado, let's get going. So powders is stands for petrol, oil, water, damage, drive, electrics, rubber, steering, suspension, and the Y at the end is you, the rider. So what we'll do, we'll go through each one in turn, and we'll start with petrol. So petrol, most bikes have a fuel gauge. So we'll do a check on the fuel gauge. I know this fuel gauge works. If it hasn't got a fuel gauge, we check the tank visually. And what we're looking for is we're making sure we've got enough fuel for the journey that we intend to make. So that's P for petrol. The next thing we're going on to is oil. And on the FJR, we check the oil on the sight glass there. And that's the filler cap, if we need to add any. What we're actually looking for is the colour of the oil, as well as the level. So on this bike, that is on the fuller end of full. And I'm looking to make sure there's any leaks around where the bike was standing, which there isn't. And this is just recently had an oil change anyway. In addition to that engine oil, we're also looking at clutch fluid, you can see there, and brake fluid. Brake fluid for the front and for the back. We've got brake fluid in there. And we've also got another reservoir under here, which is quite difficult to get to. I normally have to take the seat off to get to that one. The other one is the final drive, which we'll come to later. Basically, that's the filler. Needs to be filled to the top of that, and there's a drain plug under there. I don't know if you can see that. So I'm just making sure that there's no leaks at this point. So that's oil. So now we come to W for water. On the FJR here, there is, in there, if you can see that, can we get the camera in there? There is a water reservoir and a filler cap there. So water reservoir down there, and the filler cap there. When I do this, I just undo the bolts for the fairing and just pull it back. It's quite difficult with this fairing. And what we're looking for is to make sure that there's sufficient water in it. There's also on the other side, under here, there's a radiator cap. The pressure cap's under here. Okay, that's W for water. Okay, the next thing we're coming on to is the first of the D's, and that's damage. Well, we can see there's little bits of damage on this bike because it's 21 years old. But what we're looking for is new damage, and fairings hanging off, make sure everything's in place, and that any damage that you do find, you should try and identify when it happened, why it happened, and of course what could prevent you doing the same damage again. So all in all, this bike looks pretty good. So that's the damage. What I'm also looking for is, while we're on the subject, is on here I have a radiator protector, but I would be looking for damage there because you get stuff that gets thrown up from the wheels and debris flying into the radiator. But them protectors are good, and I recommend getting those if you can. So that's D for damage. Okay, the next D is a drive. So this has got a direct drive, but it also covers chains. So what we're looking for here, again, we're making sure there's no leaks and no damage to that drive. With a chain, we would be looking for the chain is lubricated properly and it is of the right tension. We're also looking for hook sprockets and basically any damage or wear that we can see on the chain. And that is the second D for damage. Okay, the next one now is E, and that is for electrics. And what we're basically doing is verifying the operation of the electrical systems. So the first thing I would do is turn the ignition on, make sure any lights that are going to be on are on, and any lights that shouldn't be on are not on. And at the moment, everything looks good here. So, what we're looking at first is the lights. Now I need to put the ignition on for this. Okay, there we go. So we're looking at lights. So we've got side lights, headlights, and we'll have should have tail lights. Let's have a look at our tail lights. So yeah, we've got tail lights, and then we're checking our indicators. So I'll do right indicator. So we've got the indicator working. We have the indicator warning on the dash working, and we have the rear indicator working. So that's the right indicator, and we do the same for the left indicator. So there's the left indicator warning light. There's the left indicator working, and we go round and we see that the left indicator is working at the back part of this as well. Some bikes are fitted with these. We have a hazard warning, so both indicators, warning indicators on the dashboard are working. Both indicators are working at the front. And both indicators are working at the back. And now we can check our high beam. So yes, they're definitely working. That's high beam. And there should be a high beam warning light. You can't see in this light, but there is a high beam warning light on there. If I switch it off, you can see, you just barely see it switching on and off. Now, turn the hazard warnings off and the indicators. The next thing we check is the horn. That's fine. So we've got other things that we can check as well, other electrical items, and one of these on this particular bike, and some of the other Taurus as well, is the electric screen. So that works. And you would check heated grips working, you would check anything electrical really. So that's electrical. So this is R for rubber. Now, it's not just tyres, but we'll start with the tyres. We have to have a free rotation of the tyres. What's that? Free rotation of the tyres, and we need at least 1 millimetre, at least 3/4 away across the centre of the wheel, all the way round. the circumference of the tyre. So all I'm doing now is I'm just checking to see that the tread depth's okay. It's within that 3/4. It's more than 1 mil, and you'll see little wear markers inside the tyres. So there's no nails in that bit of muck there. We're also looking for any bulges, cuts, any adverse wear anywhere in both the side walls and on the road surface of the tyre. And we do exactly the same with the front wheel. Now this is on a centre stand, so I would probably need somebody to sit on the back to counterbalance it, so I could do the same with the front wheel. And there's the front tyre, and it all looks good. I have checked them before. The other thing we're checking on these is that the tyre pressures are correct. Remember, the only thing between you and the road are these tyres. So if you look after these, they'll save your life. So tyre pressures on this will be 36 in the front and 42 in the rear, and that's depending again on any weight that I'm carrying. Also with rubber, we're looking at grips, making sure that we have no grips coming off. There is a grip, but that's just a neoprene cover. But the rubber on the grips is in good condition. And that's all for rubber. So the first of the two S's is steering, and what we're looking for is a full uninhibited turn from left to right. And if we start the bike up, what we're also looking for now is to make sure that the throttle cable or any cables are not getting trapped as we steer, and we'll be able to tell this if the revs change or any alteration in the revs. So we move it from lock to lock. Just turn it off. Yeah, so we move that from lock to lock. The second S is for suspension. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail on suspension because setting suspension up is quite a complex operation. There's plenty of videos out there on that. So I think what we're first looking at, we're checking fork seals, any leaks on the seals, and they're all both good. And where the back of this bike, there is a hard and soft. So depending on whether these panniers are empty, but they do add extra weight, and we're looking to make sure the suspension also that it's not leaking. So the actual adjustment of it is depending on the weight that you're carrying, and if you're carrying a pillion, obviously it's going to be, you need harder suspension. And then okay, and finally, why for you the rider? So what we're looking for is to make sure that you have the correct equipment, like a helmet, and make sure that your helmet is in date, because they need changing every 5 years. There's no damage to it, and the visor is clean. We're also looking at, we've got suitable clothing for the weather, that the clothing is suitable in terms of safety, footwear, gloves, and high vis if you need it. Like I always wear high vis now. I never used to, but I always wear high vis now, particularly now coming into the dark evenings when the nights are drawing in. Finally, I would say your mental and physical state. If you've been out on a drink the night before, and you don't feel like going out, then don't go out. If you don't feel fit to ride, don't ride. Don't do those. As we all know, riding takes a lot of concentration, and if you're not fit to be riding, or if you've got other things on your mind, if you've had a row with the missus, or something's going on in your life, and riding's probably not the answer. And that's basically it, guys.